Manchester United fans, there has been a major twist in the race for one of Europe's most exciting young attackers, and this time, Manchester United could be moving ahead of Liverpool. Ibrahim Mbaye is once again at the center of a huge transfer story. The 18-year-old Paris Saint-Germain winger has attracted interest from several major European clubs, but the latest reports suggest that Manchester United have now made their move. And there is one detail that could completely change this transfer race. Liverpool's interest in Mbaye has reportedly cooled. That could potentially open the door for Manchester United. According to a fresh report from 442, Manchester United are now in advanced talks to sign Mbaye after Liverpool withdrew from the race. However, other reports have described United's position more cautiously, saying the club has made inquiries and is keeping tabs on the player. So, at this stage, Manchester United have not completed the transfer. There is no official agreement, but the situation is clearly developing. And that is exactly why United fans should be watching this story, because Mbaye is not just another young player being linked with Manchester United. He is an 18-year-old PSG attacker with international experience, enormous potential, and a reported valuation of around 50 million euros, approximately 42.7 million pounds. And there is another reason this story is so interesting. Manchester United have already seen what Mbaye can do. He actually scored against United during pre-season. That means this is not a player the club has only discovered through scouting reports. United have had the opportunity to see him up close. They have seen his pace. They have seen his movement. They have seen how direct he can be. And they have experienced the danger he can create personally. For an 18-year-old, that is impressive. Mbaye is primarily an attacking player who can operate from the right side, and his ability to attack defenders directly is one of the qualities that has attracted attention. But why would PSG even consider selling such a young player? This is where the situation at Paris Saint-Germain becomes extremely important. PSG already have an enormous amount of attacking talent. Ousmane Dembele, Kvicha Kvaratskhelia, Bradley Barcola, Desiree Doué, and other attacking options competing for minutes. With so much competition, Mbaye's path to regular first-team football is becoming increasingly difficult. Reports suggest that Mbaye wants more opportunities and could be open to leaving PSG in search of regular senior football. And that could be Manchester United's biggest advantage, because United can offer something PSG may struggle to guarantee: minutes. Manchester United have a relatively thin group of natural attacking options, and bringing in another young winger could give Carrick another player to rotate and develop. That does not mean Mbaye would automatically become a starter, but he could have a much clearer pathway to first-team football, and that could be extremely attractive to an 18-year-old. Now let's talk about Liverpool. Liverpool had also been strongly linked with Mbaye. In fact, reports suggested Liverpool were exploring a move for the PSG winger while also pursuing Bradley Barcola. But the latest developments indicate that Liverpool's priority has shifted towards Barcola, while the reported $50 million valuation has made Mbaye a more complicated proposition. That is where Manchester United could potentially benefit. If Liverpool are no longer pushing as hard, United have one less major Premier League competitor. But there is still competition. Bayern Munich have been linked, Borussia Dortmund have been linked, Aston Villa have been mentioned, and other European clubs are reportedly monitoring the situation. So United cannot assume that Mbaye will simply become available. PSG remain in control. They can decide whether to sell, they can potentially consider a loan, and they can demand a major fee if they believe Mbaye has the potential to become a future superstar. Reports have suggested PSG value him around 50 million euros. That translates to roughly 42.7 million pounds. For an 18-year-old with limited senior experience, that is a significant investment, and that creates the biggest question for Manchester United. Should they pay 42.7 million pounds for potential? There is a strong argument for it. Mbaye is extremely young. He has already played senior football. He has represented represented Senegal. He has scored on the international stage, and he has experience playing for one of Europe's biggest clubs. According to 442, Mbaye has already made 41 appearances for PSG and recently became the youngest African player to score at a World Cup. Those are impressive milestones for someone who is still only 18. But Manchester United must be careful. A huge transfer fee creates pressure. If United spend £42.7 million on Mbaye, fans will expect immediate results, and that could be unfair. An 18-year-old should be allowed to develop. He will make mistakes. He will have inconsistent performances. He will need time to understand English football, and he will need time to adapt to the physical demands of the Premier League. But if United believe his ceiling is extremely high, that investment could eventually become very valuable. Imagine signing an 18-year-old now and developing him for the next 3 or 4 years. If everything goes perfectly, United could potentially have a world-class attacker, and that is the attraction. This is not simply about what Mbaye can do today, it is about what he could become tomorrow. And Manchester United have been trying to build a younger squad. They have already invested in young talent. They want players who can grow with the team, so Mbaye could fit that strategy perfectly. But there is still a massive question. Where would he actually play? That is where part 2 becomes even more interesting. If Manchester United managed to sign Ibrahim Mbaye, Michael Carrick would have another fascinating attacking option. The first question would be whether Mbaye is ready to start regularly. Realistically, probably not immediately. At 18, he would need time, but Manchester United could use him strategically. He could come off the bench, he could start selected matches, he could play domestic cup games, he could feature against certain opponents where his pace and one-on-one ability could be particularly dangerous, and gradually he could become more important. That development pathway could be exactly what Mbaye needs. Remember, the reason he is potentially available in the first place is because PSG have so many established attacking players. If he can't get regular football in Paris, moving to Manchester could give him a different opportunity. And that is potentially the key to this entire transfer: playing time. Manchester United doesn't necessarily need Manchester United to promise him 40 starts. He needs a genuine pathway. He needs to know that if he performs well in training, he will get opportunities. If he scores goals, he will get more opportunities. If he develops, his role will increase. And that is something United could potentially offer. And from Carrick's perspective, having a young attacker who can change the tempo of a game could be extremely useful. Imagine a match where United are struggling to break down a defense. The opposition is sitting deep. The game is becoming predictable. Then Mbaye comes on. Suddenly, United have a player willing to run at defenders. He can attack space. He can cut inside. He can create 1-versus-1 situations. And even if he doesn't score, he can force the opposition defense to change its shape. That is valuable. But there are also weaknesses. Mbaye is still developing. His decision-making will need to improve. His consistency will need to improve. And the physical side of Premier League football will be a completely different challenge. This is why Manchester United cannot expect him to arrive and immediately solve their attacking problems. He would be a development project, but potentially a very exciting one. Now let's look at the financial side again. Around £42.7 million is a lot of money. Manchester United have already spent heavily during the summer, so the club must decide whether Mbaye represents enough value to justify another major investment. There is also the possibility that PSG could consider a loan. Reports have suggested that PSG are open to different solutions because Mbaye's pathway to regular football in Paris is complicated. And that could be Manchester United's biggest advantage, because United can offer something PSG may struggle to guarantee: minutes. Manchester United have a relatively thin group of natural attacking options, and bringing in another young winger could give Carrick another player to rotate and develop. That does not mean Mbaye would automatically become a starter, but he could have a much clearer pathway to first-team football, and that could be extremely attractive to an 18-year-old. Now let's talk about Liverpool. Liverpool had also been strongly linked with Mbaye. In fact, reports suggested Liverpool were exploring a move for the PSG winger while also pursuing Bradley Barcola. But the latest developments indicate that Liverpool's priority has shifted towards Barcola, while the reported $50 million valuation has made Mbaye a more complicated proposition. That is where Manchester United could potentially benefit. If Liverpool are no longer pushing as hard, United have one less major Premier League competitor. But there is still competition. Bayern Munich have been linked, Borussia Dortmund have been linked, Aston Villa have been mentioned, and other European clubs are reportedly monitoring the situation. So United cannot assume that Mbaye will simply become available. PSG remain in control. They can decide whether to sell, they can potentially consider a loan, and they can demand a major fee if they believe Mbaye has the potential to become a future superstar.